The blood-curdling Tarkalian screams turned to whimpers, then gurgles as the human soldier's combat knife sawed through the alien's throat. Ryan Henry kicked the twitching corpse off his blade and surveyed the carnage. His human strike force, just awoken from stasis, had swiftly and brutally slaughtered this Tarkalian village. The shock and horror on the surviving aliens' faces was obvious, even to an alien-hating human like Ryan. They clearly never expected to see humans again, and now we're back to make their worst nightmares a reality once more, Ryan thought with cold satisfaction. It had been centuries since the filthy Tarkalians' desperate uprising drove Ryan's ancestors from this planet. Humanity had subjugated the Tarkalians for generations, enslaving them, oppressing them, exploiting their world's resources for Earth's gain. The Tarkalian uprising nearly wiped them out, but bought their freedom. Until now. Ryan watched a young alien male, little more than a boy, stagger from a hut, his face a mask of devastated anguish and tears as he beheld his family's bloody bodies strewn before Ryan's boots. The alien looked up, meeting Ryan's pitiless glare, his eyes blazing with impotent rage, agony, and hatred. He's just a primitive, Ryan thought contemptuously as the broken alien fled into the forest, probably to warn others about the human's dreaded return. "What are your orders, sir?" Ryan's second-in-command asked. Ryan took in the scorched Tarkalian village, their first foothold to reconquer this planet and reclaim it for humanity's interests. From the primitive structures and backward technology, it seemed the Tarkalians had rebuilt a simple, peaceful civilization in humanity's long absence, but remained technologically regressed and inferior to Earth. They would be no match for the human war machine this time. "Establish a perimeter, fortify this position, gather all intel and resources," Ryan ordered coldly. "Then we'll move out and begin clearing the surrounding area. Kill all who resist. It's time we reminded these primitives who their true masters are. Humanity let them off the leash for far too long. That ends now." He anticipated the orders soon to come from Earth. Crush all resistance mercilessly. Round up the able-bodied to work and serve us. Strip this world bare for humanity's gain. Ryan smiled a predator's grin. It felt good to have an enemy to conquer again. No misguided mercy or hiding in stasis while their civilization crumbled this time. This time, the humans were back to stay, and the Tarkalians would learn their place again at humanity's feet, or be ground into the dust. This time, they would finish what they started all those centuries ago. The real war was about to begin, and Ryan knew that he and humanity would be the ones left standing triumphant in the end, as it should be. On this day, a new era dawned on Tarkalia, and the Tarkalians' fates were sealed. They would submit to human rule once more, or perish. Ryan knew which outcome he was betting on. He turned to his men, a cold gleam in his eyes. "Move out. Let's go remind those aliens why we were their living nightmare. They'll regret ever thinking they were free of us. Time to show them what real conquest looks like." Ryan surveyed the captured Tarkalian settlement, now swarming with human soldiers rounding up prisoners. The Tarkalians huddled in fearful groups, their wails of despair music to Ryan's ears. He spotted his lieutenant dragging a frail, elderly Tarkalian male towards him. "This one's refusing to talk, sir," the lieutenant reported, shoving the prisoner to his knees at Ryan's feet. Ryan grabbed the old Tarkalian's chin, forcing him to meet his gaze. "What's your name?" The Tarkalian held his silence, defiant eyes boring into Ryan's. Ryan chuckled. He enjoyed breaking the spirited ones the most. "Well, I have ways of loosening tongues," Ryan said, drawing his knife. "I'll ask again. What's your name, alien?" "I am Zorak," the prisoner said at last, his voice thin but steady. "And I will tell you nothing, human. Do your worst." Ryan smiled coldly. "Challenge accepted, Zorak." For hours, screams emanated from the makeshift interrogation hut. Ryan worked tirelessly, employing every brutal technique he knew to pry information from Zorak about Tarkalian strongholds and defenses. Yet no matter what sadistic tortures Ryan inflicted, Zorak stoically endured, revealing nothing. Finally, Ryan stepped back, wiping sweat and alien blood from his face. Zorak slumped in his bonds, every inch of him bruised or bleeding, but his spirit unbroken. Ryan found himself begrudgingly impressed. "You're tougher than you look, old one," Ryan said. "You'd make a useful asset with the right persuasion. Lock him up for now. I'm not done with him yet." As guards dragged Zorak away, Ryan turned to his lieutenant. "Get me a status report. I want to know everything about what our recon drones have detected." Soon after, Ryan stood before a holographic display showing the dense jungle stretching beyond the settlement. Thermal readouts indicated a cluster of Tarkalian life signs moving northwest, towards a larger population center, if the drone's scans were correct. "They're making a run for it," Ryan said, watching the fleeing heat signatures, "probably hoping to warn others about us." He glanced at the tactical map, calculating. Let them spread the word. Let them tremble at the news of humanity's return. It would only make crushing them that much sweeter. "Lieutenant, prepare a rapid pursuit force," Ryan ordered. "It's time we showed the Tarkalians what human vengeance looks like up close. We'll intercept those refugees and take prisoners for interrogation." "And the rest, sir?" Ryan's expression hardened. "No survivors. I don't want a single alien maggot left to scurry away with tales of our arrival." As the pursuit force mobilized, Ryan turned to his remaining troops. "Fortify our position here. If the Tarkalians try to counterattack, I want them walking into a meat grinder. Understand?" His soldiers saluted crisply. "Yes, sir." Ryan smiled, relishing the taste of impending victory. Whatever primitive resistance the Tarkalians tried to muster, it wouldn't be enough. This time, there would be no escape for them, no respite. This time, humanity was here to stay. Meanwhile, Pryler raced through the jungle, his heart pounding. The nightmare he'd hoped to never see again had come to pass. The monstrous humans had returned, as bloodthirsty and merciless as the stories of old. And now, after centuries of peace, Pryler found himself fighting for the very survival of his species once more. A flicker of movement caught his eye, and Pryler skidded to a halt, signaling the other refugees to take cover. He crept forward, fearing human scouts had already outflanked them. Then, a familiar face emerged from the foliage, and Pryler couldn't contain his shock. "Crux!" Pryler gasped, scarcely believing his eyes. "Is that really you?" The grizzled old warrior opened his arms, and Pryler fell into his embrace, sudden tears stinging his eyes. Crux had been like a father to him, training him in the ways of battle since childhood. Seeing him now, after the fall of the settlement, was like a miracle. "I feared the worst," Crux said hoarsely, holding Pryler at arm's length. "When we heard the distress calls, I thought—" "The humans attacked without warning," Pryler said, the words bitter ashes on his tongue. "Our village is lost. They spared no one. Crux, they've returned, just as the prophecies foretold." Something dark and haunted passed through Crux's eyes, a vestige of the scars he carried from the last human occupation. The elder Tarkalian nodded grimly. "Then we haven't a moment to lose. These refugees must reach Tarkos Prime to spread warning." Crux turned to Pryler, gesturing to the northwest. "Go now, with all haste. Scout the route ahead and alert the capital. I'll lead our people to safety." "But Crux—" The old warrior gripped Pryler's shoulders. "You're the fastest among us, and you know the way. Fly like the wind, Pryler. Our species depends on it." Pryler wanted to argue, to stay by Crux's side, but he knew his mentor was right. Warning Tarkos Prime was paramount. Swallowing hard, Pryler clasped Crux's weathered hand in his own. "Stay safe," Pryler entreated. "Don't let those human bastards catch you." Crux's mandibles formed a fierce Tarkalian grin. "They'll have to kill me first." He shoved Pryler forward. "Now go." Pryler ran, his breath sawing in his chest as he bounded through the dense undergrowth. Tarkos Prime was still leagues away, its walls and defenses woefully unprepared for the looming human onslaught. As Pryler's feet flew over the uneven ground, one thought pounded in his skull, driving him onward. He would not let the humans conquer his people, not this time. Prylar would rather die than see the Tarkalians submit to human tyranny again. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, he would fight to his last breath to steal back the freedom so many had sacrificed for. This time, the Tarkalians would not go quietly. High above, the human recon drones watched the fleeing heat signatures divide, analyzing the Tarkalians' movements with merciless precision. In his fortified settlement, Ryan Henry smiled at the unfolding data. The Tarkalian refugees had split up, one group moving northwest, while a lone signature raced ahead towards a dense concentration of alien life signs. "Tarkos Prime," Ryan said, reading the drone's geographical analysis, "their wretched capital." It seemed one plucky Tarkalian was trying to play hero, speeding ahead to warn the capital of the impending human invasion. How tenaciously noble. And how very futile. Ryan opened a comm channel to his pursuit force. "Lieutenant, our fleeing friends have decided to split up. The larger group is yours. Hunt them down and take prisoners. A lone bogey is making a run for Tarkos Prime. Leave him to me." Ryan armed up, slinging a plasma rifle over his shoulder. He'd deal with this lone runner personally. It had been far too long since Ryan had challenged himself. Chasing down one spry little alien to snuff out his people's last shred of hope sounded like just the sport. Ryan signaled to his guards to bring the Tarkalian elder. Zorak stumbled out, defiant despite his injuries. "Looks like you'll get a front-row seat to your species' downfall after all, Zorak," Ryan said, his lips curled in a predatory grin. "Let's go welcome your people to their future under human rule." As dropships roared from the settlement, Ryan gazed at the dense jungle concealing his prey. The Tarkalian runner was fast. He'd give him that. But it made no difference. In the end, Ryan would catch him. And with him, Ryan would crush the Tarkalian's last desperate glimmer of resistance beneath humanity's heel. Forever. Prylar's feet pounded the forest floor as he raced through the dense foliage, his mind churning with conflicting emotions. The need to warn Tarkos Prime warred with a burning desire for vengeance against the humans who had captured his mentor. Crux's teachings echoed in his head. "We must strike back against oppressors, Prylar. Our people's future depends on it." Prylar skidded to a halt, his decision made. He wouldn't abandon Crux to the humans' cruelty. Turning to his most trusted rangers, he laid out his plan. "We're going back for Crux. It's risky, but we can't leave him behind." Under cover of darkness, Prylar led his small team through the jungle. They moved silently, using hand signals to communicate. As they neared the human settlement, Prylar spotted a patrol. He nodded to his second-in-command, who loosed a silent projectile. The human dropped without a sound. Inside the compound, Ryan circled Crux like a predator. The old Tarkalian's face was bruised and bloody, but his eyes remained defiant. "Last chance, old man. Tell me what I want to know, or we do this the hard way." Crux spat blood at Ryan's feet. Ryan sighed, gesturing to a technician. "Prep the mind probe. We'll rip the intel from his brain." As the device whirred to life, alarms suddenly blared. Ryan cursed, grabbing Crux and pressing a knife to his throat. "Seems we have uninvited guests." Outside, chaos erupted as Prylar's rangers launched their attack. Explosions rocked the compound as the Tarkalians used guerrilla tactics to confuse and disorient the human forces. Prylar fought his way through the mayhem, dispatching humans with swift, brutal efficiency. He burst into the interrogation chamber to find Ryan holding Crux hostage. "Let him go!" Prylar snarled, raising his weapon. Ryan sneered. "Come get him." The two clashed in vicious hand-to-hand combat. Despite Ryan's superior strength, Prylar's rage fueled him. They traded blows, neither gaining the upper hand. Suddenly, Crux lunged forward with a roar of pain and commitment. He threw himself between Prylar and Ryan's descending knife. The blade sank deep into Crux's chest. "No!" Prylar screamed as Crux collapsed. Taking advantage of Ryan's shock, Prylar landed a devastating blow. He scooped up Crux's limp form, but the old warrior's eyes were already glazing over. "Go!" Crux wheezed. "Save our people!" Anguish tore through Pryler as he was forced to leave Crux's body behind. He and his surviving rangers fled into the night, Ryan's furious shouts echoing behind them. As dawn broke over Tarkos Prime, Pryler stumbled through the gates. The raid had proven the Tarkalians could fight back, but at a terrible cost. Citizens gathered, their faces a mix of hope and fear, as news of the daring rescue attempt spread. In the smoking ruins of his compound, Ryan's eyes blazed with cold fury. He barked orders to his troops, determined to crush the Tarkalian resistance once and for all. The real war was just beginning. Ryan Henry paced the command center, his fists clenched in rage. The Tarkalian raid had been a humiliating setback, one he refused to let stand. He slammed his palm on the communications panel. "This is Commander Henry to all nearby human outposts. I am invoking Emergency Protocol Omega. Send all available reinforcements to my position immediately." Within hours, dropships thundered from the sky. Platoons of heavily armed shock troopers disembarked, their powered armor clanking as they formed up. Massive combat mechs stomped off the landing pads, weapon systems whirring to life. Ryan surveyed his bolstered forces with grim satisfaction. "Prepare for full assault on Tarkos Prime. We end this now." Meanwhile, in the Tarkalian capital, Pryler stood before the High Council. His voice wavered as he recounted Crux's final moments. "He died so I could warn you. The humans are coming, and they show no mercy." Murmurs of dismay rippled through the chamber. An elder counselor spoke. "We cannot match their weapons. Our guerrilla tactics will not be enough," Pryler finished. "We need something more." The council exchanged glances. Finally, the High Speaker nodded. "There may be one option. During the last occupation, our ancestors devised a plan, a fail-safe of unimaginable power." Ancient data files flickered to life, revealing schematics of a hidden facility. Pryler's eyes widened as he absorbed the information. "I'll go," he said. "I'll find this weapon." For weeks, Pryler and his team hacked through dense jungle and scaled treacherous cliffs. At last, they reached a moss-covered door set into a mountainside. Pryler placed his hand on a weathered panel. With a groan of protesting metal, the entrance slid open. Lights flickered on, illuminating row after row of strange machinery. Pryler approached a central console, brushing away decades of dust. The screen came to life, displaying schematics for a device labeled Infinity Resonator. "By the spirits," Pryler breathed. "This could change everything." As Pryler's team worked to decipher the ancient weapon, Ryan's forces descended on Tarkos Prime. Orbital strikes shattered the city's outer defenses. Combat mechs strode through the rubble, unleashing devastating barrages. Ryan's voice boomed across the occupied communications grid. "Tarkalians, your pathetic resistance ends now. Surrender or be annihilated." In the hidden facility, alarms blared. Pryler looked up from his work, fear etched on his face. "We're out of time. Activate the prototype." Scientists scrambled to power up the massive device. Energy crackled along conduits as the resonance chamber hummed to life. In Tarkos Prime, Ryan smirked as his troops breached the central citadel. Victory was within grasp. Suddenly, warning klaxons shrieked across every human system. "Sir," a technician shouted, "massive energy spike detected." Ryan's eyes widened in shock as a blinding wave of force erupted from the heart of the city. In an instant, every piece of human technology went dark. Mechs toppled like felled trees. Dropships plummeted from the sky. As the pulse expanded across the planet, Pryler stared at the facility's sensors in horror. The Infinity Resonator's power was far beyond anything they'd imagined. Its effects could render their entire world uninhabitable. Human and Tarkalian alike found themselves facing a stark reality. The weapon meant to end the war might very well end them all. The Infinity Resonator's pulse ripped through Tarkos Prime, shattering the stillness with a deafening roar. In an instant, every piece of human technology went dark. Mechs toppled, their pilots trapped inside lifeless metal husks. Dropships plummeted from the sky, crashing into the rubble-strewn streets below. Ryan Henry stared in disbelief as his once mighty army crumbled around him. He grabbed his comm unit, frantically trying to raise his troops. Nothing but static answered. "Damn it!" he snarled, hurling the useless device to the ground. A battle cry pierced the air. Ryan spun to see a wave of Tarkalian fighters pouring from hidden shelters, brandishing crude weapons. At their head stood Prylar, his eyes blazing with righteous fury. "For Crux!" Prylar bellowed, raising a blood-stained blade. "For Tarkalia!" The Tarkalians crashed into the disoriented human forces like a tidal wave. Ryan watched in horror as his troops, stripped of their technological edge, fell before the vengeful aliens. "Fall back!" Ryan shouted, his voice hoarse. "Regroup at the command center." But it was too late. The Tarkalians, intimately familiar with every alley and rooftop, picked off the retreating humans with brutal efficiency. Ryan ducked into a half-collapsed building, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Outside, the sounds of battle grew more intense. Ryan peered through a crack in the wall, watching as Prylar led a group of fighters in a daring assault on a human strongpoint. The Tarkalians moved with fluid grace, using their knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver their opponents. Ryan gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He needed to get his remaining forces off-planet, regroup, and strike back. But as he emerged from his hiding spot, a bone-jarring tremor shook the ground. The sky above Tarkos Prime split open, great fissures of molten rock erupting from the planet's core. Poisonous gases belched forth, choking both human and Tarkalian alike. Ryan staggered, struggling to keep his footing as the very earth beneath him bucked and heaved. "To the ships!" Ryan roared, rallying what remained of his troops. "We need to evacuate now." But as they raced towards the spaceport, Ryan's blood ran cold. The orbiting starships, their last hope of escape, were plummeting from the sky. The resonator's pulse had crippled them, leaving them as helpless as the ground forces below. "No," Ryan whispered, watching as his carefully laid plans crumbled to ash. A familiar voice cut through the chaos. "This ends now, human." Ryan turned to see Prylar standing amidst the rubble, flanked by a group of fierce Tarkalian warriors. The alien's eyes burned with hatred as he raised his weapon. "You and your kind will pay for what you've done to our world," Prylar snarled. Ryan drew his sidearm, knowing it was useless against the oncoming horde. As the two leaders faced off, the ground beneath their feet split open, a river of magma surging forth. The battle for Tarkalia had reached its cataclysmic finale, and there would be no victory, only survival.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.